In this training session, we will discuss the operation of the Sales Order Management System. This system allows you to create customer price quotes and sales orders, and is integrated with both the inventory and the accounts receivable modules. First, we'll discuss the creation of customer price quotes. To do so, we select Price Quotes from the Sales Order menu. This screen shows all the price quotes that have been entered into the system. By default, the list box only shows active quotes, that is, quotes that have not yet expired. By using these checkboxes, however, you can instruct the list box to include expired quotes or quotes that have been converted to a sales order.
Let's add a new price quote.
First, we indicate who the customer is by selecting from our customer list or by just entering the name and address of the person requesting the price quote. For purposes of printing the price quote to give to the customer, we can include a different ship-to address or indicate that the customer address is also the ship-to address. The system will give us a quote number and allow us to enter a customer purchase order number, a quote date, a date the shipment would be required, and a quote expiration date. We can also enter a brief description of the quote, shipping information, payment terms, and the name of the sales representative who is creating this price quote.
Now we'll add some line items.
As with purchase orders and accounts receivable invoices, we can indicate that this is a text line item. This will allow for the entry of an extended description. Otherwise, we can enter an item ID or select one from our item price file, a description, the quantity needed, and the unit price, if it wasn't filled automatically when we selected our item. We'll save this line item and add one more. When we've finished our price quote, we can now create a printout to send to the customer. This price quote can be printed to be faxed, or it can be emailed directly to the customer using the Report Emailer function. Now that we've completed our price quote, we will click the OK button to save the quote. It now shows up in our list box, waiting on the customer to make an order. Now let's talk about creating a sales order. If a customer makes an order for items that were quoted using the price quote system, we simply find the appropriate price quote in the list and click the Create Sales Order button. The system now brings up the sales order entry screen, already filled out with all the information from the price quote. If this is an order for which there was no previous price quote entered, we enter the sales order by selecting Sales Orders from the Sales Order menu. This screen shows all the sales orders that have been entered into the system. By default, the list box only shows open sales orders, that is, orders that have not yet been converted to an accounts receivable invoice. By using this checkbox, however, you can instruct the list box to include sales orders that have already been billed.
Let's add a new sales order.
First, we indicate who the customer is by selecting from our customer list or by just entering the name and address of the person making the order. For purposes of printing the sales order and packing slip, we can include a different ship-to address or indicate that the customer address is also the ship-to address. The system will give us an order number and allow us to enter a customer purchase order number, an order date, a date the shipment would be required, and the date the items were released or shipped. We can also enter a brief description of the order, shipping information, payment terms, and the name of the sales representative who is entering this sales order.
Now we'll add some line items.
As with other line item entries, we can indicate that this is a text line item. This will allow for the entry of an extended description. Otherwise, we can enter an item ID or select one from our item price file, a description, a quantity needed, and the unit price if it wasn't filled in automatically when we selected our item. When we click the OK button to save our line item, the inventory system will deduct the indicated number of items from inventory, so that other users entering sales orders will see an accurate portrayal of the number of inventory units that are currently available. We'll save this line item and add one more. When we have finished our sales order, we can now create a printout to send to the customer or keep on file. Our sales order is now created and awaits fulfillment, shipping, and billing. If you are using the inventory system, you may wish to print a pick ticket. This report can be given to warehouse personnel who can assemble the order and use the printout to record their progress. The pick ticket can then be used to record the order fulfillment. To record fulfillment, highlight the appropriate sales order in the list and click the Fulfillment button. On this screen, you can indicate whether the individual line items on the order have been filled. To tag an item as having been filled, highlight the item and click the Tag as Filled button. Using this button, you can tag all the items as filled. If a specific line item was only partially filled, highlight the item and click the Edit Fulfillment button. You can then indicate how many of the ordered quantity were actually filled. The system will create a new backorder line item for the remaining unfilled quantity. As you can see, the system can easily handle partial fulfillment and back orders. Now the order can be shipped. If you want to print a packing slip to send along with the shipment, highlight the sales order and click the Print Packing Slip button. A packing slip will be printed, showing all the fulfilled line items. Now we can convert the sales order to an accounts receivable invoice so the customer can be billed. To do so, we simply highlight the appropriate sales order and click on the Create Invoice button. The system will ask for an invoice date and for which accounts receivable batch you wish to use to process the invoice. Select the batch you want and click the Proceed button, and the system will create the invoice. You can now go to the Accounts Receivable menu and select Invoices. Here is the invoice we just created from our filled sales order. It can now be edited, prooflisted, and posted. The instructions for processing accounts receivable invoices are given in a separate training session. This concludes this sales order training session.